There we go. Hello, everyone. This is Sebastian Marquet from Crush to Cellar. We are very excited to host Chris Holman from Scott Lab. I know Alex Scott's supposed to be here, but he had an impeachment and was not able to participate. So thank you, Chris, for jumping and replacing Alex for this webinar. So Scott Lab have been very ahead of their game with Corks and packaging product, and they always bring up some new stuff, new product and innovative ways of treating corks. And so it's great to see them. They are still looking for new ideas and ways to reduce some issues with these corks. And I'm very happy, Chris, that you're here to talk about it. So first, with COVID-19, we always say it's a difficult way of doing business, but we need to adapt ourselves. So first question is, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Chris Holman. I'm the GM of the packaging department with Scott Labs. I've been with the company for about 8 years now. I was on the wine side of things for about 25 of those years, my 30-year history in the wine industry. Previous, I was the GM at Gunlock Bundschuh, the Vice President of Production at Hess Collection Winery. And so I have a lot of production background, experience of bottling equipment and closures. And so when the Scotts came to me 8 years ago and asked if I'd be willing to take on the position here and run this department, I was happy to do so because, as many probably know or don't know, we're top of the bottle closures. So from champagne corks, wire hoods, screw caps, tin capsules, crowns and bedules. We pretty much do it all here, and all the suppliers that we currently support and sell are all vetted, very high-end quality products. And that's what we shoot for. We don't want to have anything that's second best for our customers. So, so I've been here 8 years, enjoy it, love it. Love to come up with new ideas and innovations. Sebastian had mentioned about Scott Labs. We're kind of innovators here at the company. We are founding members of the CQC, which is the Cork Quality Council. We were the first to come up with SO2, which is now everybody's doing it in the industry for corks, SO2 in the bags. So we kind of look at ourselves as innovators. It's interesting because I've made some notes here, and I still hear to this day that people don't really realize that we sell cork. They know us as a fermentation company, but we've been doing cork. We've had cork in our here at Scott Labs for 40 plus years. So when I hear that, I kind of cringe a little bit. How do we? But then again, Scott Labs has never really been a big marketing and push, and we're pretty humble people here, and the company's pretty humble. So we stand on the quality of our products and word of mouth through current customers. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Can you describe your surrounding with COVID-19? Everybody is stuck in the office somewhere, or try to stay 6 feet away from anyone else. So can you describe your surrounding?
Yeah. So since COVID hit, we have about 100 employees total, maybe a little over 100 employees at Scott Labs. We have a new facility, which we brought everything under one roof. We've condensed 2 other warehouses and built a new facility back in 2017. We moved in November, and the offices are pretty empty. Since COVID hit, it kind of hit for us in March, which is what we call our crush time for cork production. So I've been coming to the office every day since. I feel it's important if my team is out here producing corks, it's important for me to be here and support them on a daily basis. So as Sebastian said, we got to figure out how to do things differently now with COVID. So a lot of Teams meetings and Zoom meetings and things like that. So so keeps me busy. You can see some of the cycling. We support some cycling things. Scott Labs here. I'm a big cyclist, golfer, so outdoorsman.
So you said you are doing corks for a long time at Scott Lab. Can you tell me a little bit of the history of a cork at Scott Lab?
Yeah, so cork, our operations were established in Portugal in 1976 with a company called Corval. Bruce Scott had put this together as one thing to offset because we were just a fermentation company. And so when harvest was over, there really wasn't a lot to do for the company. So they got into cork in 1976. We have a broker there, Mario Pinto, He's been with us for 37 years now. And he's responsible for ensuring that all of our visual grades meet our expectation, as well as controlling the lots from all of our suppliers. It's important to have someone over there. Back in the day, years ago, the cork industry can be a little strange at times. So it's important to have somebody over there working on our behalf with our suppliers, making sure that what we purchased is what we get, so to speak. So it's a very important control point for us to have in Portugal.
So cork companies put in place screening to improve the quality of a cork for a long time now. Why are we still getting cork bottle coming back to wineries?
It's a great question, because for me, being on the other side for many years, I always dealt with this. 6% TCA, 7% TCA was a thing, years ago. The industry for the last 4 or 5 years, many companies have promoted additional screening to reduce TCA, but in fact, the rates of TCA have reduced. But from Scott's standpoint, they haven't reduced to where we feel they should have been. And so we started this, what we call the Scott Plus. It's a 2-part process, and it's the latest cutting technology developed by us, and guarantees us, that we can get less than 0.5 of 1% of corks with measurable TCA. We're the only company currently that have combined the dry steam technology and sensory with exceptional results. And we validated this, which we'll talk a little bit later about with independent labs. So we do everything third party. Nothing is done in-house as far as testing results, because we want to, be neutral to that. And we think that's important for our customers. So, yeah. So,
you said you have a building there. You are established in Portugal. So does Scott Lab is different in terms of purchasing from the competitor? Being based in Portugal, are you buying the corks at the beginning of the process different way than everybody else?
Yeah, so there's 2 major differences between Scott Labs and our competitors, and one is we're our independence, which protects us and the customer's interest over the supplier's interest, which is really critical, right, and key. And that we have no incentive to accept corks that don't meet our stringent quality protocols at all. So we don't pay for the cork until it's passed all of our protocols, and somewhat the same, but very important to our competitors, have no incentive to reject lots. I mean, if they produce the cork, being vertically integrated from the forest to the factory to production, once it's punched this cork, it is what it is. So good or bad, they're incentivized to take it. Versus the key thing for us at Scott is that with Corval being in Portugal, our broker, we can test the cork there before it gets here. We can test it again, and we can reject it at any time. So we don't pay for the cork until it meets all of our protocols, our stringent QC protocols. It's just one of the things that we've been doing for a long time, and knowing that, I try to give the example of when we split business with a customer, with a competitor in our cork. We always hear how much cleaner our cork is, even in the years when TCA was high, our TCA levels were much lower. And the reason for that is that if the lot is tested and it has TCA in it, we can reject it at any given time for any reason. So again, we don't pay for it until it meets our protocols, and we feel comfortable with bringing it in. So very important, the 2 things, independence, and we can reject lots at any given time. We don't pay for it until we accept it.
So that is a major difference, because you don't stuck with something that you don't like. You test before you accept the lot.
Exactly. Yeah. So we test it in Portugal, and then when it gets here, we test it again. And if it doesn't meet our protocol, we'll reject it, put it on a container, and send it back. And they'll send it to other markets or send it back to the supplier.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's very important. It helps us keep really clean lots here. So.
Okay, so Scott Lab have a very interesting new approach. Can you tell me about it? What is your new approach in terms of?
Yeah, so I started about 4 years ago. Everybody came out with their individual detection systems, and it's basically sensory, and I'm sure that people are on here have heard about it. You pay more for that stuff. We looked at we knew in dry soak, and I think people relate to this. We figured out that doing large format and doing dry soaks, you can pick the TC up pretty quick when you warm the corks up and warm the jars. And so what we did is we developed a system over there with heat tunnels. And so we would put the corks in a hopper that would come down on a little conveyor, and each cork is individually tested and censored with people that we have qualified on sensory. So we test the folks at the lab and in Portugal for their tolerances of PPT of TCA. And so they have to meet a guideline of being able to test down and smell down to below 2 PPT, which is important, right? It's, as we know, it's easy to find what we call bombers in the industry, the real stinkers, the real cork bottles. It's very hard to find the ones that are below, 5 PPT. And, sometimes you can pick them out, sometimes you can't. And so what we listened to the winemakers over years. And one of the things we always heard, again, it's easy to pull the bombers out and the stinkers, we can all find those. But it's the ones that are 5 PPT and less that are really tough to find. And winemakers have always said, well, those are the ones that when a customer, buys our wine and it's slightly, the wine is, muted a little bit, or it's just off a little bit, and then they don't buy their wine again. Well, we really took that into account and really tried to address that. And so we have this 2-step process that we run all of our corks through on our UF grades and above, all the way to USS, which is many grades. We run them through the heat tunnels first, and we do sense running those. We reject all the ones that have TCA and other off aromas. You get eucalyptus and rubber and all kinds of things. So from there, we take those corks that have been pre-screened, and we take those and run them through the dry steam process, which we are the first ones to come up with the system. We enacted it last year, did a bunch of trials with it through ETS and SABAC, which is the equivalent to ETS in Portugal. Did a lot of validation studies to see if we were getting reduction in TCA. And so basically what the dry steam does is it sweats the TCA and other off aromas out of the cork. And it's a pretty neat process. And what we found is that when we did the heat tunnels and came up with that design, all of our competitors started buying those as well. And so again, being innovators, others were following. And then now that we have this dry steam process and the equipment, others are buying the same equipment. The difference is we've spent 2 years, you can buy the equipment, but the process is the key part, because you have to be careful that you don't run the corks in the system for too long, because you'll break down the cell structure. And if you break down the cell structure, then you can have issues with, sealing of the cork, you can have leakers and all kinds of things. So it took us about 2 years to really figure out with the university over there how long the process should be so that we don't damage the cell structure of the cork, which is very important. And then, as you can imagine, dry steam, it's not a wet steam, so it can mitigate and get through the corks to sweat out the TCA and other off aromas. So it's a pretty neat 2-part process that nobody else is doing yet, and the results are amazing, is what we're seeing. I was and everybody on here, I'll be completely honest, being from the other side for many years, I was a bit skeptical. I needed to be a part of that process to believe in it before we introduced it to the market. And it's been so successful now that our suppliers have actually bought the equipment, and they've invested in it as well, because they are seeing the results, and they want to do better. They want to get better as an industry as a whole.
So 2-step process. The first is the heat tunnel. So you pass all the corks going through the heat tunnel, and you can do individual sniffing to make sure that you don't only have TCA issues, but as well some rubber or eucalyptus or any other, that make a big difference between the automatic GMCS usually than everybody else use, where they only get the TCA sniff with a certain calibration, expecting the calibration is accurate. And now you came up with a dry steam system. So dry steam, can you explain a little bit more? What is a dry steam? It's always like can you explain the dry steam process? Yeah,
people look at it and think of dry steam like when you sterilize a filler or something like that on the bottling line, it's wet, right? Dry steam, basically, it's also known as saturated steam, and it's produced by heating water up in a closed chamber. And then the dry steam comes out as a gaseous form, and it's able to carry that heat and travel around obstacles to reach areas that wet steam can't. The whole idea is that, as we know, creating too much moisture in corks can create issues. So the dry steam is a great resolution to that. And so the process, functionally sweats the TCA out and other off aromas in the cork without damaging the cell structure and mechanical functionality of the cork. So it's a pretty neat process. And again, it took us a good solid 2 years to develop this so that we could bring a cork to the market that would work with no TCA. And again, we're seeing great results with it.
Did you do any validation from that?
We did. Like I mentioned before, our validation we do all by third party. We don't do it in house. It's done at we've done it at ETS and Savac, which is again just the equivalent to ETS in Portugal. And the final validation performed again after the lots. We do that after the lots through a process by testing. What we do is we take those lots and we take 1,000 corks from each of those lots and we do individual testing on it. So you hear of these machines that, in the lab, they're very slow, but they can do 1 cork and it doesn't damage the cork. So anything that comes out that has TCA is rejected. The great thing is we don't accept if 1 cork out of those 1,000 corks is tested individually. If 1 cork comes back with TCA, we reject a lot. And again, it goes back to the independence of being able to select our lots and reject our lots without having to pay for them. So it's a great benefit. It's for our customers, So, yeah.
Wow. How did you proceed?
Well, so basically, corks are pulled from the heat tunnel sensory. When we pull the heat tunnel corks out that we know have TCA, we marked every cork individually with laser, so they couldn't be changed. We sent them off to the lab to ETS to have them soaked. They did all the soaks. We left it in their hands, and then we came back with the results to determine the PPT levels in each cork. And then once those results are determined, we then took the same corks and ran them through the dry steam process. You got to remember they're all numbered, so we can track them. And then we took those again and we just handed them over to ETS. They did the soaks again and then provided the results to us. And the results we're finding are remarkable. Again, it's a pretty neat process that we've come up with. Yeah.
So if we combine the individual selection of dry steam, we should be very safe in terms of quality.
Yeah, the great thing is that we're seeing 99.8 to 100%. So on those 1,000 corks that we do, and we do individual tests after they've been through the heat tunnels and dry steam process, the results we're seeing are amazing. 99.8 to 100% are coming back, perfect. So one of the key things that I think that needs to be hit on is that, we know as an industry through tests, studies, and data that all corks that have TCA, 80% of the corks that come from the Portugal market, Spain, wherever it's coming from, we know that 80% of those corks are 5 PPT and below. So by combining the 2 processes with the heat tunnel, by pulling those what we call bombers out that are easy to find, we know that we can reduce through the dry steam anything that's a 5 PPT, and we've even seen instances 8, 9 PPT. It's reducing it down to 0. So it's and by validating that, we send 1,000 corks out, and so we can see the results pretty immediately. So again, when we marked those corks and had them tested and ran them through the dry steam, we already knew what the PPTs were prior to going through the dry steam, and the reduction in TCA on anything that's 5 PPT and below is eradicated and gone. So it's a pretty cool process.
So can we take a bad lot and go through a dry steam and then make it a good lot?
We don't. You could, and I'm not sure what others will do, but we want to make sure we start with extremely clean lots first before we run them through the process. And our goal is to take really good lots and make them exceptional. And that's what we're seeing with the whole results of the dry steam. So we don't do that. we don't tend to do that. And you can only a bad lot is only going to get better to a certain point. It's never going to be exceptional what we expect here at Scott to provide to our customers. Just we don't cut corners that way. So, and the great thing is, if it's a bad lot, again, we can reject it. We don't have to pay for it. We don't buy it. We just give it back to our supplier. So we can constantly look at new lots all the time and make sure it meets our strict protocols of, no TCA or minimal. And then we know what we can control, down the road through the heat tunnels and dry steam. So, yeah.
So what is interesting with your approach is scalable. It's not just, I can understand and you can treat big amount in the same time. You don't have the issue of need to invest more on equipment. Like I'm thinking about GCMS, where at one point you're limited in terms of how many core you can put through your piece of equipment to detect it, with individual testing. So the scalability and efficacy of the process of dry steam is super more flexible than any other technique.
Yeah, we looked at, 6 years ago, we looked at individual detection through GCMS, and it just was slow. And you couldn't, and again, to harp on it, it's easy for the GCMS to get the bombers. The small ones are tougher. And so a lot of those still got through. With the dry steam process, anything 5 ppt and below is gone now. So, and those would take, those machines when we were looking at were like 18 seconds. I think they've gotten them down to about maybe 10 or 11 seconds per cork. It's pretty slow, right? So the volume you can't get. So when everybody wanted it, there just wasn't enough volume to go around. The nice thing about the dry steam process is we can process about 600,000 corks in our system at one point given time. It's a 3-day process for us, but you think about it, 600,000 corks. So overall volume for us, we sell about 42 million corks a year, of which about 35 million are natural corks. So we have more than enough capacity to produce and run them through the dry steam process and the heat tunnel process to fulfill our needs and have excess capacity. So, yeah.
So gas chromatography will be maybe not as influential than it is now, and dry steam will be able to scalable and move bigger volume to ensure and the quality will be reached.
Yeah, I think the future is GCMS will always be there. I think, we use it a lot to pre-test our lots before we accept them to start to run them through the process. You always have to have some starting point. So GCMS is great for that, to determine if it's a good lot or not. And so, but I think ultimately with the dry steam process, the results we're seeing are so amazing that you still have the GCMS, pick those good lots out, and then with the dry steam process and heat tunnels, it's going to become a thing of the past. I really believe. You may get a cork here and there once in a while, but it's compared to where we were 20 years ago, even 10 years ago, with the amount of TCA levels that were in Cork, it's just it's a huge reduction. So it's a great win for the cork industry. Because natural cork is, at least in my eyes, it's the best closure depending on what your product is. There's other closures that meet for price points and wines that turn quickly and things like that. But it's found, we'll say it's found new life. Yeah. Okay,
so that brings to the last question, the Scott Promise. Can you tell us? I read on your website the Scott Promise. I got a ton of email from Scott Lab with the Scott Promise. So can you tell us what is the Scott Promise?
Yeah, so we've always been a little bit hesitant to go out and say, we like to vet and do our homework and make sure that what we put out to the market and our customers is true, and that we can back it up. And so as many people will know that, we when everybody came out with a guarantee, we were slow to do that. And there's a reason we were slow, because we all know what's happening in the industry and we know the realities. And so we didn't want to promise something to our customers until we actually had something. And so The heat tunnels were a step in that direction, but we still weren't confident, even though we knew that we can remove bombers. The lower TCA ones were still tough, and we know that is for the GCMS machines that are out there as well. But now that we have the dry steam and the results we're seeing, we have a guarantee, and that's our promise, that if you buy cork from us, we'll reimburse you the full retail price of that bottle. And here the kicker is, we're not only doing that on our high-end cork, we do it for all of our natural cork, whereas others are just doing it on their high end. We do it for everything, and that we believe in the dry steam process, and the results are proven to it. So we're very confident with sending out our promise to you, is that we would buy back any bottle. And then the great thing is we're not asking you to send the cork back. If you tell Sebastian you're buying from Sebastian and you have a bottle that's cork, we trust you as a customer. We trust that, you know, you're honest with us, we're honest with you. And so we're not going to ask for it. We're not going to test it. We're just going to take your word for it, and we'll reimburse you as a credit through Scott Labs. So yeah, we stand behind it 100%. Yeah.
So you must be very confident.
I am. And you know, part of the story goes, when we first started this process, our sales manager and myself, you know, again, I was on the other side for many years, so I was always a little skeptical with cork, you know, and I always said to myself, when the Scots came and said, would you take on this department? I was like, man, what am I getting myself into? Cork, why would I do that? You know, it just has so much bad aura around it, I guess, negativity. And so when we started this process, we had the equipment, we did the prototype machine. I actually took corks from our heat tunnel that we knew had TCA, and I did the same thing. I marked them with our laser machines here. And then what I did is I actually took them over there. We joke about it because it was like we had it handcuffed in a briefcase, the cork, so we could take them over there. We put them in the machine. We waited. We stayed there for the 3-day process, and then took them back, put them in the briefcase, and brought them back to the States, and took them to ETS to get the results. Because I had to see it myself. I can't look a customer in the eye. I can't look you in the eye. I can't look our salespeople in the eye. And if I don't believe in it, how am I going to promote it to everybody else? You know, I can't look you in the eye. I mean, you're going to read right through it. So do I believe in it? Absolutely, 100%. And I'm the one that actually came out with a promise, and because I'm confident in it. Will you get a cork with TCA here and there? More than likely, but the reality is the reduction is less than 0.5%. It's going to be a rarity. I would think in the next couple of years, I think people really won't be even talking about TCA, to be completely honest with you. And again, I'm always a skeptical one. So I really believe in it. I really do. Yeah.
Well, wonderful. So I'm not sure if anyone had any questions. If you have any questions, you can always send them per chat, or you can send to me per email at sebastian@crushreseller.com. Crush Reseller now carries Scott Lab corks, but also M-Core capsule, Stelvin screw caps. So that is something new than Crush Reseller is offering. If you need any additional information, please contact me. Chris, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for playing the game of Crush Reseller Webinar Series. And thank you for participating.
You got it. So you can be rest assured, anything you buy from Scott Labs is guaranteed. That goes for our champagne corks. It goes for any cork product you buy from us. We guarantee it. So whether it's a micro, a 1+1 natural cork, or champagne cork, we guarantee it all now. So yeah.
Well, super. I had a beautiful display, as you know, at Crush Reseller at the entrance, with all the different corks and capsule and tin capsule, and with accident, the car just jumped through the door and destroyed everything. So I'm rebuilding a display now. So if anyone want to swing by and look the different options of corks, I will be happy to show you the options. Does Scott Lab do printing artwork on corks? That is one of the questions from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we 8 years ago when I got here, everything was ink printing. That technology is still around. We still do some ink printing. We have machines to do that. But the latest in technology is what I brought in is laser printing. It's much faster. We can print and process the same day. You don't have to wait for the inks to dry. So yeah, we do that. And if you have artwork, we have an artwork department that can work with you to put it all together. They can send you a proof, sign off on the proof, and we can even do samples if you needed samples. We can print them on the laser pretty quick. So for sure.
And you know, one thing, usually it takes 3 weeks after the artwork is approved, correct? To get
yeah,
called?
usually it fluctuates during the busy time, in our harvest time, which starts April through August. Our lead times are about 3 weeks. If you have something new like this time of year, we can flip artwork around to you in the same day pretty much, or within 24 hours, and work with you to get it. And then we can produce corks within a day or two and get them shipped. So it's never, and look, if you're a customer and you're in a pinch and it's our busy time, the great thing about laser printing is, again, we can print something. If we have the artwork on file, we can print it today, we can process it, we can bag it, and we can ship it the same day. So if you ever get into a pinch and you forget where those 10,000 gallons came from and you need all these corks, we're here to help you out. So
one more question: is the dry steam treatment applied to all Scott Lab corks or just one kind?
No, all corks. So, we have 2 different washes. We have natural wash and Sterisim wash, which is the peroxide wash, which is the whiter wash. So we run dry steam on all natural corks. All natural corks get it. So our lowest of the lowest grade, the B5, which is very economical grade for folks, all the way up to our high-end stuff. So from the corks that we supply to Opus, to Jordan, to Heights, to Phelps, all the high-end stuff to our lowest grade cork, it all goes through dry steam. So you can be rest assured the product you're getting is a good product. Yeah. We just clean it all up, make it exceptional. Yeah.
Wonderful. I do not see any additional questions. So anyway, you can always send to me the question through Crush Seller website or my email /crushseller.com. Thank you very much, Chris.
All right, you got it.
Minutes. It's perfect. We're on the time. Thank you very much, everyone, to participate to Crush Seller website webinar. Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers.